I have these friends, Dan and Sheila. They're podcast hosts.
Welcome to Profiling Criminal Minds. I'm Dan.
And I'm Dr. Redmond, a very happy
Oh my God.
Redmond.
I mean, we don't have to be coy about this. It's fantastic. Here's the thing. I can't believe we're already 6 weeks into this.
I know, eh?
Like, it feels like I've only watched 2 episodes. This thing is zipping along so fast. I mean, the complaint that so many people have about these expanded storytelling seasons of television, right? Where you do a 10-episode season, but really you only had a movie's worth of content, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this thing, there is so much packed into every week. There are huge plot developments every week. Stuff is changing constantly, but because, they have this expanded format, they have the room to do really good character stuff. And we finally got, oh my God, Emily and JJ getting to spend a whole episode together. I was so happy. Oh my God, I was ecstatic this week getting to see them spend, but that's not the important part of this week's episode.
No. There's nothing in this episode that is unimportant.
No, not at all.
There's nothing in this episode that is going wrong.
Nope.
There is nothing in this. I don't mean that way. I mean, I've got nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
All we're going to do is go, oh my God, they finally got it.
Yeah. They got there. They figured out how serial killers work. It's season 17 and they understand how serial killers work.
Finally.
I always like, yeah, but I mean, I love people who are always like, yeah, but aren't some serial killers bad seeds? I mean, what are you basing that on? What do you base the term bad seed on? You don't know what happened in the first 3 years of that kid's life. You weren't there. Oh, well, Ted Bundy just showed up and brought a knife into his mother's room at the time. And by mother, we mean grandmother, because he was told his grandmother was his mother because he was actually, the child of a 14-year-old. Like, don't you think there was stuff going on in that household that might have explained why this 3-year-old was pulling a knife around other than he was born bad?
Well, no. Well, the thing is, being born bad means, right, that you can exculpate yourself.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm not saying I don't know why they do it. I'm saying I think serious people should, question when they're told that these children are being born bad. That's why that Millennium episode is so good. Right? Where you got this little girl who was quote unquote born bad. And then you get the mother confessing that she was never able to feel close to her child or give her any love. And I'm like, oh gosh, I wonder why the child's a monster now. Really good episode of Millennium, by the way. Monster. Oh my God. Also, the kids are being abused regularly and it's called correction and parenting.
Well, and in their school, their daycare.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was talking about, the correction and parenting. But yes. And also the parents are slapping them. And that episode just indicts everybody. God, it's such a good episode. But it's like, this episode is like, there's a formula for making serial killers, everybody.
That's what we find out when we get to the end. And I'm just like, I was going, there's the whole build-up.
Oh my God. Yeah, all right.
Everything that they've handled, the scene between David and Tara.
Oh my God. Stellar work. And his just refusal to this macho still, let's face it, Catholic. He doesn't want anything that's wrong with him is between him and his priest, except he doesn't go to church. So him and God.
Yeah, well, and I'm not even sure he has any relationship with his God either.
Not anymore. No, and that's why, by the way, he's spinning out. Because he doesn't have anyone he can go to. At one point he did, but everybody he could go to has fallen away. And now all he's got is his own. He won't talk to his friends. He won't get professional help. All he's got is his own internal character. And when he has been, let's face it, shaken to the bone by what Voight did to him.
Okay, here's the thing that we need to, because this episode is really about David Rossi.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, this is from beginning to end, and when like all of the other stuff is going on because it has to. Like, I loved it.
Yeah.
Like, all the other stuff is going on, but the critical stuff is going on.
Is all
with
the David Rossi. Yeah.
And David Rossi, of course. Well, when Tara goes in, I mean, he's seeing Voight all over the place.
Everywhere.
Everybody's turning into Voight, and he's falling apart at the seams, and he has no way of figuring anything out. And then Tara, and Emily has never been of any use. And anyway, she's falling apart.
Yep.
She won't go to therapy either, for heaven's sakes. So, which we'll talk about later.
We'll get to we'll do all of the Emily and JJ scenes in a block, because they do not link up with the rest of the story. They are their own side story this week.
Yeah. So what happens when Tara goes in, then after Dave just blows the meeting, the big meeting, and everybody's just going, what are we going to do here?
Yep.
Right. And so Tara goes in to talk to him, and he's doing his macho stuff. Everything is fine. No,
course.
it's not.
No, he's falling apart.
Enough. Stop it.
Yep.
And you're not going to your mandated trauma therapy.
Oh, of course
and
he's
you're not doing this. And she sits him down, and she said, and is there anyone you can trust? She said, you have a forensic psychiatrist in front of you.
Yep.
Are you going to talk to me? You have got to do something.
Oh, yeah.
And so she finally, she forces him to sit and to listen. She tells him 90 minutes a day.
A day. Well, if he's hallucinating,
She says PTSD.
Yeah.
And he kind of shakes his head, yes. And of course it is. She said, Dave, this man
buried you alive.
Buried you alive.
Yeah.
And you're telling me
you can cope with this. Yeah.
It's not okay. You have to talk to somebody. And if you're not going to go to therapy, you have to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
Basically is what she says. But she's good. I love the whole thing. She just sits with him. Finally, he puts his hand out to her. She holds his hand, and then she asks him questions. And the one question is, okay, you've had this before.
Yeah.
And when does it end? Well, when they're convicted. Okay. But she says, but some of them continued.
Mm-hmm.
So
and then we specifically bring up Womb Raider, which, Jesus Christ. Still not okay with that nickname, show.
Yeah.
Although they specifically, don't say it this time. Thank God.
So what happens, right, is that she says, but what about the ones that continued after they were in jail? What did you do? Well, I went to jail.
By the way, I have never, this, this is a show where we used to have to, say, why didn't you say X, Y, or Z?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then the show would never say X, Y, or Z, and we would be pissed off. So when he's talking about Womb Raider and why he saw him before, he's like, I don't know why. I had to go to see him in jail, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I know why. It's because he held 40 missing dead bodies over your head. It's because it was unfinished business, and you let him make it unfinished business with you by allowing him to see how important it was to you that those victims get identified. You let him see how much that meant to you, and you gave him power over you. And what I love it, and it's like, this isn't a mystery, but Dave doesn't want to admit that to himself, and then Voight just says that.
Okay, and let's wait, because let's do the process to how he gets to Voight, okay? Yeah. Because, it is like, I was just so happy watching this.
Oh, okay. I know.
Because these people, and Tara, of course, has been talking to all of these serial killers for years.
Oh, yeah.
So, but she says to him then, okay, so she says to him, then you need to go and see Voight. No, I'm not going to go see Voight. No, I won't. She said, Dave, it's called exposure therapy, and you're going to have to go and get him. And what does he need to say? He has to admit that he is Sicarius.
Yeah.
That's what has to be done. And so finally he just says, we don't hear him say it, but you see him getting on the elevator, and then the elevator starts to close in. I thought it was wonderful because it comes with JJ.
JJ in the previous scene had literally just gotten high on THC and thought the walls were getting closer. And so, again, perfect matching scenes.
Yes, perfect matching scenes. And so what happens is
not narratively matched, but imagery matched, and that's what
imagery
counts.
Matched, which was great because the walls of the elevator just start to collapse on him, and
he starts having flashes of when he was buried alive.
Yeah, to where he was buried alive, and then the door opens, and then he doesn't know where he is, what he's going to do, and stuff like that. And eventually, we see him at the jail, and so then he asks them to turn off all the recording, all the cameras, everything. Yeah. He doesn't ask for a key or anything like that. He's not going to let Voight out. There
are no keys. You open all of those remotely. But yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. He just wants all the cameras turned off because he thinks, if I can just have this settled, I'll get over it.
Yeah. And that scene between him and Voight, because what we, of course, get is that it opens the whole show. This episode opens with Dave, and I knew he was having a nightmare.
Yeah,
because there was no way that this was
true. Obvious. Well, no, because there's been no setup for this. No, it's obviously a nightmare. And but the thing is, they're using
Emily for God.
I know, but more importantly, he does kill Emily. Yes, but no, more importantly, they're using the lighting and the camera work. Right, they're doing massively heightened camera work, editing, lightning to communicate that it's a dream before it ever starts.
Yep.
You don't need to be told it's a dream at the end because this has been so much more hyper intensified than the show normally is.
Yeah, and it's not like this. And there's Luke, and and what you're going? Why would Emily or Luke or anybody be there?
Why would anyone be there? It makes no sense.
No.
It's obviously a dream.
Yeah, obviously a dream.
Sorry, I forgot to check. You always do. Who directed this week's episode?
Oh, I didn't check, but I will.
Okay.
I'll let it run while we're doing this.
All right, thank you. Anyway, you were saying.
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting back to
Voight. So he goes to see Voight. And he has allowed himself to imagine that all he needs is confirmation that Voight is Sicarius. And he tries his little game of lying to Voight that his deal isn't going to go through because they didn't catch the Gold Star people.
Yeah.
And Voight is like, you're not a good liar, Dave.
Dave, you're just not a good liar. And besides, we all know that Sicarius is really, really good at profiling.
Of course.
That's all there is to it.
Right? And we've already been told that he is getting out. He is starting his reduced sentence. This deal is going through. We already know Dave is lying. And by giving Sicarius information that we have, right, it all the more makes him that much more impressive that he has this information without being told the way Dave was. It's a nice touch.
Yeah, and anyway, and so once he knows that all of this, because Dave just wants to talk, and Dave is using his macho stuff that works with just about everybody else, right? But doesn't work on Voight. No. And so that's our kind of opening into. I have to stop watching.
You're going to start watching the show again.
No, I'm just trying to run it. It's, so I can get the...
Just fast forward past the opening thing to find out who directed it.
Yeah, so anyway, but what happens, right, is Voight does say, he says, I just want you to admit that you killed 60 people. And he looks and says 62.
Boom, done. All right, I can leave.
Okay, done. And then he says, I can leave. And Voight says, that's not what you wanted to know.
Yeah, that's not why you're here.
That's not why you're here. You're seeing me. And what you understand is that Voight, who has followed Dave ever since he read his books.
Yeah, read his books back when he was a teenager.
And he listens to his interviews. And he knows Dave. So he already knows that Dave has been haunted. Yeah. By previous killers. Yep. And knows what he's had to do. And I'm listening to this, and then he says, Dave, when I talk about screen memories, right? And Dave, I think that you're just being haunted by me. I'm not being haunted by you. No. Blah, 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 blah. Dave
Yeah.
is push. And he says, no, because there's something that's bothering you.
And I'm just
Because
what
you
you're using
know.
to cope.
Yeah. Because you know I'm right. And so what do you
Well,
want to
no.
know? Well,
and
what
as he says, it's like, because
No.
you're the worst person we've ever, the worst killer in history. It's like, and I just
Give
loved
me a-
Voight's reaction where it's like,
Yeah.
even if you thought that, you would never say that to me if you thought it. That gives me way too much power. Like, why? So the reason you're being so hysterical is because
Yeah.
there's something worse you're trying to keep from facing.
yes.
And I'm like, damn, that's a great observation. And it is obviously what he's doing. This is the show getting the characters righter than they've ever gotten them. And can I just say, I know I say this a lot because I'm so impressed by this season, how great it is that they're doing this thing where they take something that didn't work in the past,
Yeah.
right? And they make it work this time. And
Mhm.
specifically what I'm talking about is none of the stuff with the chameleon worked in the season 14 and 15.
Yeah.
You just didn't buy it because Dave, like, we were supposed to believe he was horribly haunted because, and like couldn't get it out of his head. And this is the ultimate killer because David Rossi ran into a field without backup and got tackled.
Yeah.
That's it? That's what's haunting him?
I don't think so.
That is what his entire life has been,
Yeah.
like shattered because he ran into a field without backup and got tackled by a guy 20 years younger than him. 25 years younger than him. It's like, that's it? No. If you want him to loot, right? If you want David Rossi to be haunted, someone has to get under his skin. It's not just, right?
Yeah.
That it's not just that Voight locked him in a locker. That was the action he took, but it was that action was the result of him so thoroughly dismantling David Rossi as a person, turning David Rossi into the bad guy to take away his view of himself. He had completely disassembled him before he was going to execute him. And when he was going to execute him and make it look like a suicide, it would have been plausible that David Rossi had killed himself because he had already so thoroughly dismantled him as a person.
Yeah.
That's what gives him the PSD, and that's what haunted him. Not the act of being locked up, but what the act of being locked up was the end of. And it's like, and that's what they got wrong with the chameleon. The chameleon, like, just being lost in a fight, that is not who David thinks of himself. He has this idea of himself as this, as we talk about a lot, this knight, this crusader, this fighter for justice, this hero who battles monsters. And Voight was taking all that away from him. And locking him away was just the icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so good that they've done the chameleon story they were going to do so much better this time. Now it all works. Oh.
Yep.
Sorry, just
Now
and
all
that's
works.
I mean, Voight doesn't go into all of that because what does he know about the chameleon? That's just for us, the audience, right? But
yes.
fundamentally,
well, that's they call the Easter eggs that they've been dumping. This episode is full of them.
oh god, yeah. Again, what they talk about Womb Raider. They don't say it, so I had to look up. I actually had to look up and be like, wait a minute, they mean Womb Raider, right? Like that's who Tommy is. And so I looked it up, and yeah, I mean, I as if I'm gonna remember the names of the specific killers.
Yeah.
I can tell you Frank's name.
Yes, well, yeah.
You know,
Frank's
like-
name is- Frank is Frank. Frank was so
Oh yeah,
really.
he was iconic, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, can you tell me the names of any of the other serial killers? Adam?
Peter.
Who is Peter? Oh no, yeah, sorry, yeah, but the Peter Ray, the Reaper, yes, but that was his fake name.
Yeah, well, yes.
Do you remember his real name? See, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're going.
We don't remember these characters' names, but Voight. Oh, we're never going to forget Voight's name
Elias Voight. No, we're never going to forget Voight's name. that's
because
for
he's so
sure.
fully a character, right? In
Yeah.
a way that the other killers than Frank, they never get a chance to because that's not what the show was about.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's not a complaint. but it is a very different show now, and it has only, and I'm going to say it, it has, and this might sound mean, and if it sounds too mean, call me on it and push back. The show has only gotten better.
So
I
why
go
would
back
you
and I
push back
watch
on-
Criminal Minds. Well, okay, I'm glad you're in the same point.
Why
I'm
would
glad
I
you agree with me.
push
No,
back on-
well, because it's like the show
I'm
has
not
changed.
happy about
No. I'm saying the show has changed, right?
Listen to
But the
black-
changes it has made have only been positive, is what I'm saying. Okay, I'm just making sure you're not going to say, well, I really miss, yeah, we all miss Hosh. Yeah, we all miss Spencer
doesn't-
Reed. But that's
Sure.
not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the show as a creative endeavor.
Well, and the thing is that it would have been different with Hotch.
Oh, yeah.
It would have been different with Spencer Reed. It would have been different with like having Spencer in the mix. This mix, they have worked this mix so well
Yeah.
that I can't see where Spencer Reed would fit
No.
to
Well, no,
tell
because
this
they- and-
particular story.
Because they're good writers. Because that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
They're really good
Oh.
writers who started off saying, we're not going to have Spencer Reed, so let's build a show that doesn't need him.
Yes,
And that's what they did.
Oh, and we have to do the shout out to Christopher Barber.
Yeah, of course. Christopher
You know.
Barber out there. Because we've been crediting the
He's
two
been
show
around.
we've been crediting Breen Fraser and Erica
Erica.
Messer, but we haven't been talking at all about the third showrunner, which is bad. We really should have been this whole time.
Yeah, because everything is, and these are all people who were there before.
Yeah, they
Like,
were
they've all
there
been
when the
around.
show wasn't great, and now they're here making the show great. It's the
And
same,
it is
and that's the
just-
crazy part. It isn't like
Yeah.
some people came in from the outside and fixed the show.
No.
These are the people who always made the show, saying, "How can we make this show we were already making and improve it in every way?" That, and the fact that I'm thinking about this should be your sign of just how good the Voight and David Rossi scene is.
Oh, well, it gets better because basically Voight says, he finally talks Dave into, look, when did this start?
Well, no,
What
before
is
we get there,
Yeah.
I want to go over the
Okay.
logical path he walks Dave through because it
Okay.
is so good.
Yes.
Okay,
you
so,
can take that part
because
of it.
he explains that North Star is just something he made up.
Yeah.
Because the way conspiracies work is there always needs to be a new line to follow, right? There
Mhm.
needs to be a new thing to track. Whoa, what happened?
Nothing. I was just saying that's.
Oh, okay.
Yes. In my
Yeah, yeah.
head, I'm going. Oh yeah, of course that was before.
Yeah, that was before
Yeah.
because it's
Okay,
what
so
gets
go.
there.
Keep going
Right?
about the
So,
games
yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, this is what I'm getting to. And so what he said, and they bring back that Dave used to play video games,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. And now the problem here is the people who make this don't really play video games, and that's fine. They have some understanding. No such thing as a Quest video game. That's just gibberish. You're talking nonsense. But the thing is, they have to use terminology like that because saying RPG, which is what he means,
Yes, the role-
wouldn't mean anything to the standard person who doesn't play video games. Now, I think that's a very naive way to look into the world, since something like 70% of the people on Earth play video games. But you know what? They know their audience better than I know their audience. So let's
Oh,
assume
yeah. And remember that
the term
that, as
RPG
Dave
would be
says,
gibberish.
What did
Yeah.
he play?
He played
played-
first-person shooters and he played racing games.
Yeah. So and lots of people just play those kinds of things.
Oh no,
There's
absolutely,
all
and they
sorts of
they
other
play. I mean, I say 80% of people play. Say 70% of people on Earth play video games. How many of those people are just playing Candy Crush? So
Yeah, and
But
all
he's
of those-
describing the concept of an RPG, right? Where there are bosses and there are levels, and what he says, and this is very insightful, and he's completely right, is that the way is you move from one piece of information and threat to the next. You slowly work your way up the narrative until you get to the final boss. And there's always a final boss. And Dave reacts to this very naively in saying, what does that matter? And Elias points out that, like, 2 generations of people have been raised by video games now. And this is how they think the world works. And he's not wrong.
No, no. As I said, I have no complaint about any part of this show.
Well, okay.
He's not wrong. We say this about other things, like when we're talking about culture and the rest of it, right?
Yeah.
that these things are the way. It's like
It's
I
the
just
way
gave a whole
people
bunch of
understand. People have
reality.
always used stories to understand reality, and now the stories that they have access to are video games, far more than any television show. Television, movies, theater is a dead art. Who's reading books anymore? People are playing video games. So video games are providing the framework for how people interact with reality.
And we all know about the stories in video games. They are so friggin' bad most of the time.
Right?
99% of the time, it's the storyline that kills it.
Oh, absolutely.
Duh.
I know.
Never mind.
But anyway, we just have our beloved Supermassive Games holding us up.
Yes.
But the interesting part is, and this is the thing that he didn't point out, but I would just like to put in a thing I've talked about a lot that didn't really come up. But since Elias Voigt gave me an in, I'm going to bring it up. So we all know that the concept of meritocracy is a myth, right? It's a kind of an idiotic myth, and that's not really how the world works. And in fact, the word meritocracy, right? The very word was coined in a satirical novel used to describe how rich people make up the idea that they got here based on hard work when really everything's rigged. So it's like, in the same way that pull yourself up by your bootstraps started as an ironic comment about how it's impossible to describe something that's physically impossible to do. And if it is, try lifting yourself up off the ground by pulling on your bootstraps. It can't physically be done, obviously. And of course, people ended up using it. People use it all the time as something you should do. No, it's a metaphor for something you can't do. And in the same way, meritocracy started out as a joke. And the biggest toxic thing I would suggest that video games have done is all video games, not all, but vast majority of video games create a world where the meritocracy is real. Where if you play a video game, if you are good at the video game, you will succeed at the video game. If you grind away your condition in any video game, as long as you sit down and do the work, your conditions will improve. Things will get better. Your character will become more powerful. You will move through the world. You will find success. And that is what the lie of the meritocracy says, that as long as you keep your head down and do your job, things will work out. In video games, that's true. In real life, that's not true at all. And that's not exactly what Voigt is talking about, but it is that I have seen in the youth of today, people being infected by that worldview. I would suggest that it's like that is what allowed people to be taken in by all of this crypto nonsense, is the idea that they have been poisoned by video games to think that if they just keep grinding and working at it, they have to eventually get to a positive result. But that's not how the real world works. That's just how video games work. And in the same way we had to disabuse people the idea that because the good guys win in movies, good guys are going to win in the real world. We have to disabuse people of the notion that hard work will necessarily result in a reward. Video games have taught everybody that if you work hard at something, you're going to get rewarded for it. That's just not true, guys. The whole system is built to make that not true. But anyway, that's a sociological thing. That's not what we're here to talk about. But you see why I thought Voigt's comment was actively a way in for me to bring that up. Because he's talking about the same way people's minds have been affected by video games.
Well, we want to make meaning of life. And this is one way. It's like, and it's funny because you and your brother, for example, in your generation were on that kind of cusp.
Exactly.
You were still working. I just brought a whole bunch of Stephen Jackson books.
Oh, I love me some Steve Jackson books.
Yeah, well, I took them all down to the public library, so
they're not in. Don't worry,
Yes.
My old Steve Jackson fighting fantasy books are not in such good condition that they are collector's items. No, those were well played.
Yes, and then. But what happens is you choose your own adventure games,
yeah.
Right? So you are still reading and you're still seeing that you can make different choices. And early video games were very much like that too.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. The
if
old
you
text
rem-
adventures you're talking about.
Yeah, the text adventures, because I can remember we would sit and make maps.
Yeah.
I
Having to
would
make
help you
maps of
guys
how the
get
world
through
works.
them
Yeah.
to make maps, right? So that you could, you know,
You can
figure out-
visualize in a
Yeah.
2D map the entirely mental world of Zork or the Lurking Horror.
yeah, you know, and so that you would get through them. And then there's Dark
Absolutely.
Castle that nobody ever got through. I swear to
Dark
God.
Castle, don't get me
But
started
anyway,
on that one.
So there's all of those things.
Yeah.
But you guys.
No, we were on the cusp, so it did not. And the
And
rest of the
that's the same
world
way.
wasn't reinforcing this idea, so it did not form our worldview in the way that I think it does for modern people. But I mean, what Voight says is here really true.
No,
It's
but
like,
he's true. It's true.
how
what
do
he
you
says.
how do you deal with the world except by gamifying it these days? And I'm like, yeah, that's accurate. Gamify, like every corporation, every business, governments are desperate to gamify everything because it's an easy way to control people.
Yes, and then people every now and then don't want to be gamified, and they screw things up, and then because the game is rigged,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's your any game that you play is rigged because it's limited
Yeah, because it has been built
And-
by someone to serve a purpose.
to serve a purpose, and human beings just don't function that way, and then people are left scrapping, right?
Yeah,
And that,
absolutely.
in some ways, what Voight is talking about is very true, and that people are constantly looking for answers.
Yeah.
Because they're told that if they look long and hard enough, they are going to, this is what Voight is saying.
Yeah.
They look long and hard enough, they will find some kind of an answer somewhere, somehow. So, you know,
And
so
that's how he
his-
comes up with the word North Star, which is the idea that whatever Gold Star is, somebody had to have started it at some point. Like
Yes.
it didn't just happen. Somebody had started it. And so he created a code name for the thing that founded Gold Star.
Yeah. And so,
And that's
so
how he
says
got their
because-
attention. I'm like,
they
yeah,
are-
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And so then they are going to go looking for that gold star, and they are going to find it. And he keeps talking to Dave, because what the issue is that it was because Dave brings up how he murdered Doug.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it is this whole thing. He said there are only three people, you, me, and Doug.
Who really know about this Gold Star thing.
And Dave's going, what do you mean? What do you mean? I know. You know, it's like,
And as Voight says, and it's the best like maybe the single best piece of profiling a character has done on this show.
Yeah.
He's like, well, Dave, why would you be thinking about me constantly? Why would you be assessing me if you didn't know more than you were letting on? Like, why would your subconscious be doing this to you if it wasn't trying, like, what message is you trying to send to
tell
me?
you.
I'm already in jail, right? I'm already in jail. I'm behind bars. You might not like what happened, but this is, you know, you're not falling apart because you don't know who the Womb Raiders victims are, right? You are falling apart. And the only reason that can be is because your subconscious is trying to tell you something. And all he has to do is say that, and Dave goes off and running, and we immediately know what's happened.
Yeah, you know, and I'm just going, oh shit. No, because he does bring up Stewart House
Yeah, he does.
too.
About them
Voight does.
trying to build serial killers. We were clearly trying to build serial killers.
You know, and all of a sudden, you know, it's like you go, oh shit.
Yep.
Oh shit. Dave was responsible in some way for
Mhm.
creating Stewart House.
Yep.
So it is how we are
We
going
have to
to
wait
find
till
out,
next
right?
week.
Oh, we got to wait till next week. Exactly. But no, we already,
Yeah,
by
we
the
already
end of
know the
this
big
episode-
detail. Yeah.
right. But what happens, I mean, it was so, as I said, it's like my going and doing my PhD and just, you know, sometimes your subconscious pushes you into places
Mhm.
where you have no idea what you're going to find, and you don't want to go
Yep.
but you have to, because you can no longer tolerate
Not
not
can't,
knowing.
Yeah, not knowing.
And this is
Like
what's
you
happening
have a
in
secret
Fritz
deep
Readers.
inside you, and you
Yes.
don't want to face it. And so your subconscious is going to find a way for it to get out there.
And so this is why Dave, who
Or
has
you're just going to
blocks
spend
and
all your time getting drunk and high.
well, which is what Dave has been doing.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about Emily getting drunk.
We'll
and
get to
high.
Emily in a second.
Yeah, in a minute, and hiding, right?
Yeah, because that's
So
exactly what her reaction is.
Yeah. So this is fascinating because once I mean, he made a really good. This was a very good psychological interaction. This
Yeah.
was a very good therapy session.
Mm-hmm.
But partly because Voight knows so much about Dave, and he has figured some things out already.
Yeah.
I mean, he has Voight has suspicions already,
Mm-hmm.
and but Dave has to figure it out for himself. So Voight lets Dave figure it out for himself, and Dave does figure it out, and you can just see it, and he looks at him, and he then just turns around and says, "Oh shit."
Yeah. And then we see the next scene, final scene of the show. Yes, we'll deal with everybody else's plots in order, but the final scene of the show is the two of them heading out. He goes back to the office,
Yeah.
and he brings everybody there, and he presents a box of research and a paper that he and Jason Gideon did years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
Because in the 90s, everybody was obsessed with serial killers, and so they were asked, how would serial killers happen? Like,
How are serial killers created?
Yes, and theoretically, like, they were asked a question. I want to know who asked this, but we're going to find out, hopefully.
We will find
How would
out,
you
okay.
create a serial killer?
So, in their naivete,
They wrote it.
Dave and Gideon do all of this research, and then they do not publish it. They do not give it to anybody.
We don't know that they didn't give it to anybody.
No, wait a sec. They dump it all in the box.
Yeah.
Now we
but
don't
my
know.
point is,
You're
we
right.
don't know that they didn't give somebody asked them to write this. We don't know
Yes.
that person didn't get a copy. All we know for sure is they never published it. They never lectured on it. They never presented it.
No.
That's all we can say for sure.
For sure.
We
at
don't
the
know
end
that
of
they
this
never
episode.
gave it to anybody.
But I'm just
We're gonna have to wait till
going,
next week.
You're sort of sitting there and he details exactly
Mhm.
how serial killers made. And I'm just going,
Yep.
yes.
You're exactly right. Thank you.
Thank you. You're laying this down, and you can actually apply this to Voight.
Yeah, absolutely.
example,
You can apply it to Voight.
That's the thing. If you watched last season 16 and you learned everything, yes, he came from an abusive home, but then he went to a much more abusive situation.
Yeah. I mean, in the same way, like, did he set a fire that killed his parents? Yes. What was the precursor to that? And more importantly, in the same way that this Stewart house seems to have been making people worse, he went from an abusive situation to an incredibly abusive situation where he was literally living with a serial killer.
Yep.
So there you go. So how could he not end up like this?
This is, and that is the interesting thing. And it may be that Voight, to some extent, doesn't fully understand that because you got his uncle always putting into him, you were born this way.
Oh yeah, no, he has been told he was a bad seed from birth.
Yes, and of course, and I suspect Voight has never been able to get a hold of this particular paper.
Of course,
that
not.
Gideon
No. That Gideon and Rossi wrote.
And Rossi wrote, right?
Yeah.
That Gideon and Dave wrote, because
it's
then he
very
wouldn't
much
be
a
asking
secret.
certain questions. But
Then he would have been able to lead them to the importance of Stewart House all on his own.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he had access to this, I'm sure he could have just told them.
But this is very
he did
interesting,
it.
right? Because the Stewart House thing, when he brings it up and Dave looks kind of strange, but Dave's, Voight just tells, yes, but your response, well, how, oh shit. That's basically Dave's reaction. How could I be responsible for Stewart House? Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
And something comes up, and it's from 30 years ago.
Yep.
And it was dusting, and it's shitting in the back of his mind, and he didn't want to make the link because that makes him and Gideon
ultimately responsible for whatever this monstrous gold star is.
Yeah.
And given what he's spent his life doing, he fundamentally cannot accept that responsibility. That's why he's been driving himself insane. And so she's completely right. Tara's completely right.
Yeah.
If he wants to get through this PTSD, these visions, he's going to have to confront his complicity.
Oh, but that was the interesting thing with Tara. She says, I just loved it. I'm just
such a good scene. No, it's such a good scene.
With him and Tara at the beginning where she says, but Dave, you are going to have to find out. You are going to have to walk through this. You cannot keep running away from it all your life. And that is the whole point.
Yeah.
You cannot run away from your responsibilities and so many. And it's making this like real point. And you can understand that somewhere in the back of his brain, David Rossi has always had a niggling thing that's been
haunted by having written this thing.
Yeah, written this thing. And you're right, probably they have given it to somebody who then put it into action.
Yep.
And so he's avoided dealing with his
complicity is what he's avoiding.
Complicity, right?
Yeah.
And
it's such a powerful way for the episode to end.
We're going to have to talk about when we get to the end of this, we are going to be spending a long time rehashing this entire season.
Oh, absolutely.
Because this was key. What's happening to Dave? It reads it like so often I have been complaining in Criminal Minds about the psychology.
Yeah.
And
there are many seasons where we did nothing but complain about the psychology.
And I'm finally getting, okay, they finally,
they nailed it.
They finally came down on one side or the other.
Yeah, well, because they could never, because it was a show being written one episode at a time.
Yeah. And so
at the end of the day, Criminal Minds, we love it, but it was a show that was being written week to week. So they didn't worry about what their worldview was. They didn't worry about what they were saying about human psychology. They didn't worry. They're just like, well, no, here's a serial killer I just found out about. Let's do an episode about that one. Here's another serial killer. What made the serial killer? I don't know. We've got to get this episode on television in 8 weeks. I can't really worry about what the effects of what we're saying are.
Well, no, and they would go online.
Yes, and they would just read some stuff. Yeah.
They go online and find some stuff and I'm looking at the stuff. I go and check the stuff online. This is if you listen to commentaries on the DVDs.
Yeah.
You will find out some of this stuff. And, they would go to stuff. Well, yeah, but I read this online and I go and I look at it and I'm going, you didn't read enough because this is crap. This is complete crap and has been stated as untrue and crap. And all you had to do was put in, I don't know, debunk.
But what you're forgetting is they had to get an episode of TV out in 8 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
So they could not worry about that. That is the difference.
And what else did I complain about? When they fired their researcher.
Yeah, I know.
Because they used to have a researcher on staff that would do the research, and then all of a sudden they decided, no,
you don't
all
need
of
one of
the
those.
writers can do their own research. Well, no, they don't have time to do their own research. Do you not know how difficult it is to write?
It is. It is incredibly difficult to write. You can't also be doing research at the same time. That's just not how writing works.
No, it's not like you sit down and write something and then don't send it to me or send it off to Rachel or somebody else.
I have editors to specifically look over this stuff.
To say, but this is missing this. And who's this?
Wait, you've because this is all in your head, you've missed this point. You're not communicating X, Y, Z to the audience. But it's like now that they're thinking about the show as a whole thing, right? As a full season of television, every single week is a part of a whole. They're doing the work and they're saying, okay, well, what are we trying to say with this show?
Yeah.
And what they're saying is both interesting and, I'll say it, true. It's both of those things. It's both interesting and it's actually true stuff they're saying. in a way that, they didn't always say the true stuff before.
Well,
they would
because
say
they
the
didn't
stuff
know
that was, well,
because they
or
didn't do the research. They didn't
they
do
didn't do the research.
They
They
didn't
didn't know.
do the analysis. They didn't.
Or fundamentally, they said what was more interesting for television. But you know what? You can make the truth interesting for television, and this season is a perfect example of how and why it's better to do that. Because this is so much more grounded and so much more interesting than the show's ever been.
We are. You have no idea when I finished watching this episode, all I wanted to do was call Dan, and I'm going, but he hasn't finished the episode yet because he just got home.
Yeah, it was just, I was out. Yeah, she got the episode and I got the episode at the same time, but I had to go out and do 2 hours worth of errands or whatever. So yeah, you just had to sit there and wait for me to call. I'm like, I will call you when I have seen it, but that is when I will call you.
And he did.
The second I finished, literally the second I finished, I picked up the phone and we were just both like, wow.
Yeah. And that's all you can say with this episode from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And when you hear us, we will know. I mean, that's the key. We've talked at the beginning about the key storyline.
Yeah.
That is so critical. David's PTSD, how PTSD works. I thought the visual in the elevator was brilliant.
Magnificent. No, but even better than that was, I thought the elevator was great. What about the shaking down of the office wall behind him?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Even better shot, because now he's in his own office, right?
And it's still shaking.
And it's still shaking. He's where he's supposed to feel more secure, and everything is crumbling underneath him. Boom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, this was
visual storytelling.
Yeah. You remember what I was telling? Yeah. Visual storytelling. You remember I was telling you about this German thing that you need to watch.
Yeah.
Because what they were doing, because we had this idea of creating mind palaces, not only to sort of organize, but it's also
things.
In a mind palace, you can hide stuff.
Exactly.
And that visual, and that's the reason I wanted you to watch that particular German show. It's only 10 episodes long as well. And it, because of the shots there, and this is equivalent to that. This whole, everything is crumbling around Dave. See, Tara comes in and stops the walls shaking.
Yeah, because
falling in on
he's got someone else there.
Yes. But when he's alone, that's it.
He's nice that he's got a gun cleaning tray right in his office.
He's cleaning his gun. But as Tara said when she walked in the office, but you have your finger on the trigger.
Yep, and I'm guessing you changed. She doesn't say it, but he'd also chambered around. So that's a bad place to be there, Dave.
Well, no, and this is it. Rather than find out the truth, he's willing to kill himself. That's how he's on that track.
He is, because he can't
on that track,
because it is safer, right, for him to kill himself than it is for him to accept what his work could have done.
Has to accept.
Yeah, because some part of his mind has already figured it out.
Yep. That he
and Gideon, the second somebody like 2 weeks ago said that this school was turning people into serial killers, the second someone said that, a light went off deep inside, and we didn't predict that.
No, didn't see it coming.
No, didn't see that coming.
I'm not.
But
I'm so thrilled when I don't see things coming.
No, we talk about it all the time, and it's just true. But what I love about that scene is the minute that came out, the minute that cat went out of the bag, Dave realized on some level that this is his work that is doing this. And he couldn't accept it consciously. And that's why all of his visions are getting so much worse ever since he found out about the school.
Yeah. And the fact that these children it was the Jade episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? It's the Jade episode when they find out all about Jade.
Jade and her dad, and she's killing people who used to work at this school.
Yeah. And, and anyway, but yes. And then something, deep, buried deep in his
starts coming out,
or in his, he has buried it, locked it up, put a brick wall in front of it, plastered it.
And and this is the brilliance of this episode. He had to go and see Voight because he didn't have the guts to say it to himself.
No.
He needed someone else to tell him. And that's what Voight was there to do. Voight was there to tell him what he couldn't face himself, to make him face it, to make him see that it was hiding. It's, again, brilliant episode. Perfectly constructed. Like, just fantastic episode. All right. So now let's dig into the other stories. We can quickly go through JJ and Emily. What did this job ever get for you? You met your husband on the job, JJ.
Yes, I know.
You got kids, JJ. Jesus Christ. I mean, I know JJ is self-centered and a bad partner to Will, but that one's really bad for her to miss. JJ.
That was the first thing I would have said. You gotta. Well, no, that was the first thought that went across my mind.
Of course, it's the only thought you can have when she says, "What did this job ever get me?" Your family?
Husband. Your family. Yeah.
Your family, who you always talk about how important to you, but I really feel like Will's doing all the heavy lifting.
Well, we've always felt that.
We've always felt. I mean, it's been plainly obvious. It doesn't bother him. He's a great guy. He's, again, maybe the best TV husband and father, low key. You know, I know people say great things about Bob Belcher, and he's great, but it's like people are really sleeping on that Will LaMontagne when it comes to the greatest TV husbands and fathers.
Yeah, no, but he's not a. But he's not.
He's not a main character, so people don't get it.
There, right?
It's not about him.
Yeah,
but it's like I always like the there was this comment about how. So there was this movie about Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah.
The woman who destroyed America. Thanks for that, Ruth. I'll save that for our Sunday shows about the Supreme Court. But yeah, basically, she destroyed America, which, you know.
Should have quit earlier.
Oh, no, she should have quit. It's like.
That's what he's referring to.
Yeah.
She should have quit earlier and then.
Completely based on pride, she didn't. And now there's no law and order in America anymore.
So that's.
But yeah, if you want to hear more about that, we'll talk about it on Sunday. Anyway, there's this movie about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and there was a comment about the development that I really liked, which is, you know, some producer said, why isn't there conflict in her marriage? Right? Right? Why isn't her husband saying, you know, you're going too far with this women's rights stuff? And the answer is because he didn't. Like, her husband did not say that. He was actually very supportive, and and they're like, yeah, but for drama's sake. And I love that I think it was the writer or the director, maybe writer-director's response was, we have 8 million pieces of fiction about, you know, guys who have jobs and, you know, jobs or in the military or something, and all they do is they come home and their wives, without question, clean their wounds and give them comfort and tell them to go out and get back to fighting. And we can't do that once about a woman and her husband.
Yeah, and that's the perfect comment.
And that's the perfect point. And the thing is, the best example of that character in history is Will LaMontagne, who is an endlessly patient and supportive partner.
Yeah.
Who, no matter how bad she's getting, and she gets pretty bad at times, is always just like, nope, I'm here to support you, no questions asked.
And I think we need therapy.
I think we need to go to therapy.
You know, anyway.
Like all of the heroes on that show, like Tara, you know? I mean, I may question hooking up with somebody you met at an Al-Anon meeting, but at least you're going to Al-Anon meetings.
Yes. So there, right?
All right. But anyway, that's enough criticizing JJ. What I will like is they're doing the thing I'm obsessed with, chips using chopsticks.
I know.
That's how I eat chips. It's the only way to eat potato chips. If you're not using chopsticks to eat potato chips, you're a fool.
I never thought of it. I'm obviously one of those fools because I never thought.
Well, most people are fools. Like literally Gene, a guy I know, Gene from the Washington Post. He was, you know, he was talking about his game setup one time. It's like bag of Cheetos and a set of chopsticks. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh, only eat like chips and Cheetos with chopsticks.
Yeah.
Like it's more, A, it's faster to eat them. B, you're gaming, so you don't want to have to constantly be wiping your hands. And I'm like, really? And so I tried it once and I'm like, never going back. I will never touch a chip with my fingers again. No.
When I saw it, I went, perfect. Right.
Yeah.
I never thought of it because, of course, I eat chips and then I have to wipe my hands because I'm doing something on the computer.
I know. Everyone because we've been brainwashed by society to think we should be touching chips with our fingers. No, we never should have been, and now I never do. And by the way, chopsticks cost nothing. Go to any store. $2 for a bag of 50 sets of bamboo chopsticks. They're essentially free.
Well,
and you can reuse the same. They don't get dirty. It's not like you're covering them in, pork juice or something. You're eating potato chips. You can just put them in the cupboard and use them for next time you eat potato chips. I bought one bag 3 years ago. I'm not even halfway through it.
Well, I have ivory. I hate to say it.
You have beautiful ivory chopsticks. I'm actually well aware of those chopsticks. It's shameful that they're ivory, but it was the 70s and you didn't know better.
What can I say, right?
And yeah, no, they are beautiful chopsticks. I've seen these chopsticks, and I think honestly, using those chopsticks for like a bag of potato chips would be the ultimate, statement against treasuring ivory things. It's like, no, I'm not going to resell these. These are not going to be an heirloom. I'm using them for Doritos. There you go. You were fighting back against the oppression. Cheez-Its, whatever you want to eat.
Cheetos, like the
Cheetos, yeah.
Those are the things, eh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right?
That you need them for. Anyway.
Cheetos the most, but any potato chip gets your hand oily. I'm just saying.
No, this is what, and the Emily JJ, because what has happened is Emily has showed up at Garcia's place drunk.
Yep, she got there super drunk. And slept it off.
And then because Dave is worried, because Dave has had this dream of shooting.
Yeah.
Like where Emily gets killed.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't even have bullets in his gun.
Yep. The ultimate emasculation fantasy.
Yeah. And Voight kills Emily. And so then, right, he's worried about Emily. So then JJ goes to see Garcia and says, look, give me your keys. I'll go check. You can't do your work if you're worried about Emily because Dave seems to be worried about Emily.
Yep.
I know Emily's at your place. And Garcia's, well, how do I know? Well,
because of how panicky you are, obviously. You're not concealing this well.
Yeah. Duh. So JJ goes over.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a cute scene and everything, like, because the really tough stuff is broken up so beautifully.
Oh, yeah.
In this episode. So she goes, and of course, Emily's she's no longer drunk.
She woke up and she got super high.
Out of her mind on THC.
Yeah.
And then she's using all of the excuses that people use for taking THC. Like
it helps me focus.
She does it in edible. She doesn't smoke.
Yeah.
DJ says, I didn't know you smoked. Oh, I don't smoke.
Just edibles.
And no, it helps me focus my mind. Oh, give me a break.
No, you need to sleep. That's why people take THC. You need to conk out. You need to turn off your brain. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't pretend you're doing it for some noble reason.
It's for some noble reason, right?
If you want to prevent cancer or, help your joints, you don't have to get high. You can get CBD only stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, but what happens, of course, JJ, I love it because JJ is constantly, but I'm not judging you, Emily. Emily thinks, don't judge me. Don't judge me. JJ's going, and then Emily goes, but it's legal. I'm not judging you, Emily. It's just, what are we going to do sort of thing. And then JJ accidentally eats one of the edibles. That's how she finds out it's all these edibles. And then she feels the walls closing in on her. And Emily goes, oh, you got to lie down. You got to sit down. Anyway, they have these conversations about work. And that was the beautiful. I just thought it was this beautiful thing. Emily's going to quit her job because she's going to end up getting fired eventually. And, so JJ makes the good point. I got fired. You got fired. So how many bosses were there before you? There was Gideon. There was
Hotch. Yeah.
They all left. They're not here. Nobody
Make them fire you.
Yeah.
And the little callback to both of them having been fired by the show.
Yeah. She said, and we're still here.
And by the way, my favorite part about
loved
them, the line is, cause she's saying we had to be kicked out. And I'm like, actually, narratively, only you got fired from the team. Narratively, she did leave, but you're not talking about that. You're talking about how the show fired you.
Yeah.
And damn right, you still have a right to talk about how the show fired you, because it was insane that the show fired you and they never should have done it. But I just love that they're like, I mean, it's not as good as the iconic wise guy scene of of William Russ and Jonathan Banks just sitting in a bar getting drunk and complaining about Ken Wall.
Yeah.
Because again, they don't manage to make it about the situation. You're clearly just talking about the behind the scenes stuff, but I love that they're still talking about it, and goddamn right, you deserve to still be talking about it's crap what they did to you, and thank God you're both still here.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are 100% team both of them in their conflict with the networks. Yes. Hell yes.
Hell yes. No, and so
but it's a good scene. It's a really good set. I mean, I think of it as one scene because it's 3 scenes that are building up to Emily just saying she wants to quit, and then and then JJ getting her back on track, because JJ is like, no, you never stop fighting. You make them throw you out.
Because what happens is, and that's it. You make them throw you out.
Yeah.
And as hard as that sometimes is, you make them throw you out.
It's a beautiful message, and I loved the way they said it.
Yes, and the thing is what happens near the end, when Emily finally, what happens about midway through is she finds out she's got her job back because they've made the whole Brian thing go away.
Yeah, because the Brian thing was idiocy, and he's not willing to testify.
Yeah, so it's gone away. So she can have her job back, and then she starts texting. And she's going, no, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. And then she's going, JJ, should I push the send button? Do I have a send button? Is there a send button on this? Oh
my God, I love that so much.
I tell you, we all know everybody's been stoned. I mean,
no shame in it. It's legal now.
In Canada, it's legal everywhere. So and anyway, it was a good episode, and then Dave calls them in. And
she immediately knows when she sees that Dave is called, she knows what's in her heart.
Yes. And that's it. And off they go.
Yeah. Off they go.
Of course they're going, I can't drive.
I know.
I can't drive rideshare.
Then you react to the idea. Wait a minute. Hold on. Are you about to take an Uber to the military base in Quantico from Georgetown? From your condo in Georgetown? Do you have any idea how much that's going to cost?
Well, they've got money. Emily.
No, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure they've got money, but
Emily's got money.
Well, she's taking. Well, no, they can't drive, but they're taking an Uber onto a military base. What, are they going to stop at the front entrance and walk to the building?
No,
are they going to have one of the Marines drive them? Because I don't think you can drive an Uber right up to the front door of the FBI building on a military base.
I doubt that. And so, yes. And so they'll get to the thing and somebody will pick them up.
We'll pick them up. Yes. Okay. That's what
and somebody will pick them up and drive them, because I don't think either one of them are capable of.
In a state to drive
or walk for any
or
great
even
length
walk,
of time.
Yeah.
Because
that's
apparently the edibles were really powerful.
Oh, it seems that way.
Yeah, like they had sort of high level THC.
That's sad. They do have more than one, each of them. So there you go.
Anyway, so
all right. So yeah, that's a great. And so finally we've got the Tyler and the Tyler and Garcia and Luke and Teresa scene. Hey, here's something I just want the show to bring up. And I know it should have been brought up more. Would love it if it brought up more. I feel like the show's forgotten Tyler's got a son. I feel like the show doesn't remember that. feel like the show doesn't seem to remember Tyler. I mean, his son's off at university. I get it, but he does have a son, Like, it seems like it's worth mentioning. That's all I'm saying. All right, now let's move on. It's the one thing I would like to see acknowledged.
At some
Just
point.
at one point, I would like to see acknowledged. Tyler's got a son, right? Really? Yes. Yes, he does. All right, but anyway, that's my one thing. And now I'll move on, okay? But yeah, it's this stuff is also really good because they wrap up the Sebastian stuff and they dig a little deeper into who was responsible, because it turns out Teresa's in danger because she had been was being stalked using the same program, right? That Tyler used to locate David Rossi.
Mm-hmm.
And so we find out quickly enough that it's Sebastian doing it, because solving a mystery isn't what this whole sequence is about. It's about getting us character scenes to wrap up or deepen all of this emotional stuff and let the audience figure out what's going on with Luke and Garcia. Because he has been very overprotective, and a lot of us are like, oh, they're not saying he's in love with her again, are they? And no, they're not. He's just the best friend she could possibly have. And I'm reminded of that interview that went around, I don't know, a year or two ago, whenever it was, where Kirsten Vangsness was like, yeah, it's kind of great that they're just super close and we don't have all of this workplace harassment going on anymore. Well, it's nice that we're not the only ones saying it.
Yep.
I got people in my life telling me they stopped watching when Shamar Moore left, and I'm like, I think you were watching this show for the wrong reasons.
Yep. Yeah, and that's okay.
And
I do tell everybody what I think about Shamar. Go listen to her episode on our podcast.
We're not gonna have a whole conversation, but let's just say that if there was profiling Criminal Minds merch, that merch would be a picture of Shamar Moore with the phrase, Derek Morgan is toxic masculinity.
Yeah. The poster boy for toxic.
Yes, he's the poster boy for toxic masculinity. That's if there is a catchphrase.
Yeah.
Our other catchphrase, with a number of times he puts his life in willingly puts his life in mortal danger, it's impossible to avoid the realization that Spencer Reid is at least passively suicidal. That's not as punchy or as easy to put on a piece of merch.
No, we can't do that. Well, it's just the question. Yeah. Because you would have to explain. The thing is that you don't have to explain the toxic masculinity thing to anybody who's watched the show.
No, of course
you
not.
would have to explain,
What's
and you would have to send
Spencer
people
Reid.
to our 2-hour dissection of Spencer Reid's character.
As a character, yeah.
As a character throughout the show to come to the conclusion. Because it was about season 5 where we started asking the question.
Wait a minute. Well, the first time you ever brought it up was the Anthrax episode.
Oh,
and I was like a little iffy. And then, but you just see it more and more and more. And you're like, oh, this guy's trying to get himself killed. Oh, no.
And he never resolved the issues with his mother. So,
well, but that's why he's trying to get himself killed. So he won't have to.
Yes.
So his mother can have a martyr of a hero of a Knight of the Round Table. And he never has to deal with what happened with his mother.
Yes.
It's a fact.
She is.
She's a monster and he's a fascinating character. We're never gonna back up on that.
No.
All right. So
let's get back to,
I just wanted to point out that how healthy all of the relationships in this are.
Yes, it is so good because they needed to do this.
Yeah.
At some point this season.
Oh, absolutely.
To resolve this kind of Tyler Luke stress.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay?
And so they found the perfect way to do it with this Teresa, who used to be Tyler's girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And then Penelope finds out she's a little jealous because she's never heard about Teresa.
Okay, and I would put a caveat on one thing she says, where she's like, I don't remember Teresa coming up in our conversation about exes. And I'm like, full stop. These two people never had a conversation about exes. They flirted a lot. They had sex, I'm going to say conservatively, 11 times. They never had one conversation about their relationship. And then he saved David Rossi's life and she said, I'm never going to talk to you again. That was the entirety of their relationship. And it all happened over like 3 weeks. Okay. Well, so no, they did not have a conversation about their relationship. On no planet did they have a conversation about their relationship at any point.
Okay.
Just saying. All right.
Okay.
Please
Okay.
continue.
Just saying. I'm not gonna.
You're not gonna argue with me because it's inarguable.
On this because they did this well. So.
No, it's a great. I'm just saying. I had to push back on one thing, but it's still the relationship they do. This stuff is great because these are grown-ups dealing with a relationship in a responsible way that still creates drama because it's hard to deal with. But they're not like a bunch of children lying to themselves and each other. I loved it.
No, it was wonderful. And as Penelope says, look, we've got to get rid of the tension. So. As far as I'm concerned, Teresa and I are going to go off and discuss this so we can figure out who did this, who put the fake, because it isn't Tyler's. It was, so Tyler didn't do it. And so they have to figure out who did it and who's stalking her. And so, and Garcia says, and Teresa, the two girls are more comfortable. So the two guys who want to punch one another out have to talk.
Loved it.
And it worked out, and
worked out really well
because they're both, and you were right about bringing up the fact that they're both forces guys.
Oh yeah.
And that was part of the problem.
Oh, 100%.
And so by the end of it, we find out who had done the stalking and they resolved that.
And hopefully now that he's in jail, we're going to find out, we're going to be able to get, closer to, well, who hired him to do all of this in the first place? Who hired him to murder all of the Gold Star participants from the school, right?
Yeah, from Stewart House,
From Stewart House, because this is the guy who paid people to do that. So hopefully we're going to get a nice in on that. Fingers crossed soon.
Eventually. But David Rossi's it's going to be fun next week. Show.
Okay. To be clear, I will push back. Saving Private Ryan versus Thin Blue Line. Thin Red Line. Thin Red Line, objectively a better movie than Saving Private Ryan, which is just kind of, fine. But I understand how for people who are actually in the military, the idea of the camaraderie and these guys who only have each other, I could see how the movie would be important to them, even if it's not a particularly realistic depiction of D-Day or, World War II in general. It's about like how it's supposed to feel to be part of a unit. And I get why that would be important to them. But Thin Red Line is objectively just a better movie.
Okay.
It's a great film.
I will not argue with you about that because I agree with you.
Okay.
So
step two.
You're
just wrong about Donnie Yen versus Scott Adkins. Like you're just wrong. No, I mean, I'm not saying Donnie Yen
in that fight.
Okay, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that Donnie Yen hasn't had an incredible career as both a performer and, more importantly, fight choreographer. Yeah. He's amazing. Scott Adkins is a next level performer because in addition to being as talented as a performing martial artist you've ever seen, he's also a really good actor in a way that Donnie Yen just isn't. Donnie Yen isn't a good actor. He's never been a good actor because he's never had to be a good actor. The crazy thing about Scott Adkins is he's also a really good actor. Like he has done so much work on his ability to perform and emote and build character. And here's the thing. They were both in John Wick 4. And Donnie Yen is kind of just there playing a Donnie Yen, the regular Donnie Yen part, except this time he's playing a blind guy. Okay. And it's a great performance. And that's what they're miming his stick work. That's what they're doing. But Scott Adkins has a one scene role in that movie. And he is playing this bizarre, over-the-top villain with a grill. And this is the crazy part. With a giant fat suit on to make him look like he weighs 300 pounds. And like huge face makeup. And then, even though he's walking around in, conservatively speaking, 60 pounds of fat suit, he still does some of the most impressive martial arts I've ever seen. And he's creating a fully realized character who I had to then look up and find out, wait, that was Scott Adkins playing the fat guy? because it's so completely different. I have never had to check the credits to see if I was watching Donnie Yen, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He is every bit the martial artist. I don't know that he has the level of choreography, right? Experience. And I don't know that he could choreograph a fight scene or anything like that, like Donnie Yen can. But I'm just saying, as a performer, Scott Adkins over Donnie Yen every day of the week and twice on Sunday. That's all I'm saying.
So there.
So there. And by the way, it's a bit special to me because the whole scene and the characters he's playing is a tribute to video game I'm inexorably linked to, Dead to Rights. So,
Yes.
you know, there you go. The whole thing is a Dead to Rights tribute. And I'm like, they're making a Dead to Rights tribute in the year 2020? Okay.
Okay.
That's
It's funny
a
about
little
Dead
insane.
to Rights, say it, because I have to explain that to somebody. Like I have
Yeah.
to explain that. I was talking to my ASL students at some point and I had to
Yeah.
explain Dead to Rights. But anyway,
This absolutely insane video game that your son was briefly obsessed with, and he ended up getting mentioned in the sequel.
well, he did how many pages?
50 some pages. It was at the time the longest video game review ever written, and I mean, this is the part that I don't want to overstate. There is an extent to which I was maybe entirely responsible for the first version of Dead to Rights 2 getting canceled. Like, it wasn't just me. Other people who worked on the game, like, emailed me after the review came out to thank me for writing the review, because it would, like, hurt their careers if they came out and said all of the stuff I said. So I was essentially speaking for everybody who worked on the game and hated the process of working on the game. But, and this is the key part, and I'm going to put up a video about this, so check out Hidden Object Guru. The reason I bring it up the reason there's a tribute to it in it is that the whole John Wick gun fu thing, right? The idea of doing judo moves and then shooting people in the head is from the video game Dead to Rights. Video game Dead to Rights is the first time that specific action was like shown, that kind of action of doing like judo moves and then executing people and stealing their guns and all of that. That was all from the video game Dead to Rights. And you say, how can you possibly know that? Chad Stahelski, director of John Wick, who invented Gun Fu, was the motion capture stuntman on the game Dead to Rights, who was acting out all of the Gun Fu in Dead to Rights. So yeah, that's where it's from. And it's a piece of history that apparently only I have noticed or know about. But yeah.
But some of us have memories that won't let
Some of
anything
us-
go.
Exactly. Well, I'm not kidding when I say I was inexorably linked to Dead to Rights for a lot of years. People are like, that's the only part of your video criticism anyone knows about. And you know what? It's not a bad thing to be known for. All right. So we'll wrap up here since we're now talking about Scott Adkins. We've reached the end of the stuff to talk about.
Oh,
I will
except that
say,
it looks like Luke.
oh yeah, Luke is
Teresa-
totally going to ask out Teresa. There's no
Yes.
question. Like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we're very happy about it because Luke, man, you just need to settle down.
Well,
you know?
because Luke and Teresa both, so they sit and they have coffee and they're talking about,
Needing a different dating pool to draw.
yeah,
from.
a different dating pool to draw from because, he explains about his date with
Yeah.
Penelope. And she's going, and Tyler just kind of, we got to find a different date. And plus, of course, they both speak Spanish. So
That does help a lot.
it did help. And
I'm a little
understood-
embarrassed to watch subtitle. And it's like, I'm a little embarrassed to see subtitles because they're like, speaks Spanish when she you can say speak Spanish when he does the whole thing about wolves, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, dude, I think audiences understand that when she says abuela,
Yeah.
like you don't need to write down speak Spanish in the subtitles. You can just put down abuela. I think most people know that's his granny, you know?
But anyway, that was kind of,
It was sweet, and I liked it a lot. But I mean, and it led to the funniest pure comedy line. Oh, so that's your part, super hot Latina women? Wait, my last name is Garcia. Boom! Yes! Best, funniest line of the episode. Wait a minute, my last name is Garcia.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. That was a hilarious line. I'm sorry. It's just, now we're just going to sit here and talk about all the great moments in this episode because it's loaded with them.
It's just loaded. We're going to be watching this one again and again.
No, we're absolutely going to be watching this one again. No question.
I'll probably watch it again before
you
Thursday.
Post it. I know. Yeah. Oh my God. I loved it. But yeah, no, I'm not kidding. I loved this episode. It was great. All right. We will go now because we've officially gone longer than the episode. And this was an hour-long episode. How is this showing on television places? It's an hour long.
It was an hour.
Oh, sorry, no. It was only 56.4 minutes long. That's fine. It's an hour-long episode.
58.13.
This is what I'm saying.
Yes.
This is an hour of television.
I know, and you can tell. Well, they had to pack a lot of stuff in it.
But
I
it
think
flies by. That's how good the show is. It flies by.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, all of these shows where they try to stretch out, and I mean, the thing is, I like The Lincoln Lawyer. It's fun. I like Bosch. But I watch seasons of Bosch. I watch seasons of The Lincoln Lawyer, and I'm like, oh, they're treading water. You know?
Yeah.
You can tell they're treading water to fill this, that this shouldn't be 10 episodes. Whereas it's like, I'm worried they're not going to fit all the plot into 10 episodes this season.
Well, but it doesn't matter because they've already got season 18.
Well, I know. But
so
I know.
They'll resolve some stuff.
They'll resolve some stuff next year.
I mean, that's the interesting part of all of this.
Yeah, they don't have to.
They don't have to resolve everything. They have to resolve certain key things.
No, they have to resolve Gold Star this year, yes. and Jade and Damien. Like, that has to be wrapped up this year. But yes. What's next? I have no idea.
No, and we don't need to know what's next. And no, I'm perfectly happy. Like, I am now on board. I don't have any qualms. Things are going to be working out.
We have been confident about the show. We have been, and I think it's fair to say, confident about the show this year because of how well, like, again, I say that last year they had to justify why they were coming back. And not only did they do that, they made the best show they've ever did. So they absolutely have the benefit of the doubt this year. But here's the thing. We're 6 episodes in. Have we asked them, like, have we once said, oh, well, I'm sure they'll explain, like, maybe once or twice we said, I'm sure they'll explain that later. What I'm saying is they haven't required the benefit of the doubt this year. Because it's just a great show.
Yeah. And so, yes. And, oh, by the way, this thing is sliding across me. And it turns out that the THC was in the cheesies.
Yeah, the Cheezels. I know.
Right. And JJ ate one the minute she walked in the door.
Yeah, it's the first thing she did when she walked in is just took a cheese. Who's eating a Cheezel out of a plastic bag? Come on, JJ, that one's on you.
Well, I would eat cheese. Yeah, because you
out of a Ziploc bag that only has 2 Cheezels in it? That's a weird way to see a Cheezel.
4. But,
sorry, I'm sorry, but it's still in a Ziploc bag. That's weird.
But it was an open Ziploc bag.
Even still, who's putting Cheezels in a Ziploc bag? It's a weird thing you did, JJ.
She had to go buy it from the store, and they probably she just asked.
No, I understand why drug Cheezels are in a Ziploc bag. I'm saying the very act of putting a Cheezel in a Ziploc bag is suspicious.
Should have been something
that is my point. That is the point I am making. And I am objectively correct about this.
Except that I am sure that JJ as a character and Will do not do.
No, of course not. There's no question that they do not. There's no way.
They barely drink together, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So, the odd time you see something. So, yeah, I would think that, yes, maybe she just didn't think about it.
She didn't think about it. Well, no, and I tell you who does put Cheezels in Ziploc bags, a mother making lunches for her kids.
Yes.
So I'm sure, let's be realistic. Will making lunch for the kids. So I'm saying that 100% what happened here is she is so used to seeing like the breakfast that Will has laid out for her kids with like a couple of snacks in a Ziploc bag. And she's like, and she always on her way to work, grabs a chip or two out of her kids' bags.
Yeah, there you go.
And so she just did what she normally, I've talked myself into this being completely reasonable.
There
I now
you go.
think it's well observed, actually. So there you go. I now think it's actually a very well observed thing. So there you go. Yeah. All right. So yeah, the episode's fantastic. It's just been fantastic. The director's Nelson McCormick, who have worked on TV shows like Lovecraft Country. Nice. Oh my God, he directed 3 episodes of Hunters.
Yep.
There you go. All from season 1. So that's nice. Directed episodes of Prison Break.
Man in the High Castle.
Okay, so yeah, he's done plenty. Okay, he is very much a journeyman who's worked on everything. Episodes of 24.
5 episodes on Prison
I just said that, yeah. Our beloved Prison Break, the worst show on TV.
My God. I mean, it's so bad that you just...
It is train wreck can't look away bad.
Yes.
The show Prison Break. Like,
it was always so...
I could never tear my eyes away from terrible show Prison Break.
No.
But more importantly, he directed 9 episodes of Criminal Minds, including, okay, I was just going to load them up. Now that I know, we try to look for directors and give people credit when they're due. So he directed just this one in season 7. Oh, he did the 2-parter that started season 16.
Yes, the character.
So there you go.
Started.
Oh my God. Whoa.
Skin.
Oh my God. I'm just checking to make sure. Yep. Oh, wow.
Nightlight.
He did The Company.
Yeah.
The Company, the episode about getting Morgan's cousin back, where they're like, they role play that there's an evil organization helping people keep slaves and trading slaves around. And I'm like, no, they're not cosplaying. They just started an organization that does that. They have an organization. They are keeping and trading slaves. That's a thing they're doing. It's not role playing. It's just what they're doing. That's like saying he's role playing a fireman by joining a fire department and becoming a fireman. No, he's just a fireman.
Yes. So then we've got The Stranger, we've got Public Enemy, and
So
we've
yeah,
got
he's done-
Omnivore.
Oh my God, he directed Omnivore?
Yep.
Wow, okay, so there you go. He's been here for literally like key episodes and forever, so way to go.
Yep.
All right, he's really bringing it. Oh,
Yep.
and for the record, the real name of the Reaper is George Foyet.
That's it, George
Just
Foyet.
looked it up.
Foyet,
Just looked it up.
Remember. Foyet,
Yeah.
I would have remembered, but his first name?
Yeah.
I feel
And
bad not...
I had that moment, and thank God IMDb's so quick to update it, that Louis Ferreira, right,
Yeah.
is now billed that way instead of Justin Lewis on all of his parts.
Good.
Like, they updated everything right away. And I'm like, yay, because now it just says for all of his parts, Louis Ferreira, and then in brackets, as Justin Lewis. Boom. They corrected it right away. All right, so we're wrapping it up here. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to hear us yelling about how America isn't really a country anymore after the Supreme Court took away law and order for good, you can listen to our Sunday show. I'm not recommending you do that. I'm just saying you have that option.
Yes.
We will see you back here next Thursday, hopefully. Obviously, sometimes it moves to Friday, but next Thursday, hopefully, for the new episode 1707. I have no idea what it's called because I don't look those things up.
Okay, well, I suppose I could tell you.
You don't
It's
have
got-
to, but it would be polite.
Well, I can, because I've got this thing up. So where's episode 7? Why can't I just go to the next episode?
You know what?
This is 6. Okay, just a moment. Never mind. We're all
You don't
doing this.
have to.
Oh no, episode. Oh no, episode 17:6 doesn't have a name on it, but episode 7 does, and it's called Piranha.
Ooh, that sounds like fun. All right, so we'll be here to talk about that.
Mhm.
But until then, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's any profiling related fiction you'd like us to check out, drop us a line at profilingcriminalminds
@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If you're listening on an Apple podcatcher, rate, review, and subscribe to it. That's how people find out about the show. We'll see you back here next week for that episode. But until then, I'll say that's right. Au revoir.
And have a good week.